Welcome in, guys, to another episode of Throwing It Around. Today, we are doing a 1 year later version of the breakdown of the Women's College World Series. I know for those that have been with me for a while, I know the last year I sat down with Chris Clark to break down the tournament and determine who we might think would dethrone the queens of softball. That didn't happen. So 1 year later, I'm here with Makayla Clark. And now let's go ahead and thank these sponsors before we get into it. I want to thank the law office of Joseph I. Marchant, focusing on real estate closings and probate matters. Probate. I can't talk. With 20 years experience for services, contact Joey at 478-374-1505. The Riles Drug Store is a locally owned and operated independent pharmacy with pharmacists that live in the neighborhood, know patients by name, and are dedicated to keeping you, your family, and our community healthy. They offer they offer fast, competitive pricing and free delivery. Remember that Riles Drugstore also has Riles Outfitters, conveniently located inside. It's a boutique for men, women, and children that offers home decor, gifts, and much more. Shop local and make our community a better place to live. Call today at 229-868-6734 or stop by at 12 South 2nd Avenue, McRae, Helena for help with any of your needs. The Merchants and Citizens Bank is a proud sponsor of Throwing It Around. They've been a vital part of the local community since 1929. They offer products and services people have come to expect. In addition, they offer internet banking, mobile banking that includes mobile deposit, ATM banking, telephone banking, and for all of your banking needs, you can call today at 229-868-5656, or you can choose to visit on the web at www.merchantsandcitizensbank.com. Milton CPA Services LLC is your locally owned full service accounting, auditing, and tax preparation professionals. You can please visit them for all of your bookkeeping and taxation needs to help keep you, your family, or business running smoothly. For expertise and peace of mind, you can call on them. Located in the old Security State Bank building in McRae, Helena, call on them at 229-868-5614 or visit them on the web at miltoncpaservices.com. If you're looking to add a new member to your family today, you can visit Vineyard Doodles on Facebook, Instagram, or their website at www.vineyarddoodles.com. Also, don't forget to check out Turkey Creek Outfitters. I know they have some bird shoots coming up on sometime in the distant future. I know turkey season is now out of the way, but I know you can still get in touch with Kyle for any of the upcoming hunts he may have to offer at 478-697-3428 or visit on Facebook or Instagram. And Jason's Fast Lube, want to thank them one last time. Uh, Located at 200 Avenue, whether your passion is safety, luxury, adventure, or just staying on budget, let Jason's Fast Lube, located in McRae, Georgia, help keep your vehicle in top-notch condition. And lastly, I want to thank the Security State Bank for all of your banking needs. You can go see them today at 45 West Oak Street, McRae, Helena, Georgia, or call at 229-868-6431. All right, guys. And as I said, 1 year later, I'm here with Makayla Clark now, going down the family tree a little bit as we did as compared to last year's episode. So, how you doing, Makayla? I'm so happy to have you on here.
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I know for a while we've had this in the works, but we had to wait for the school year to end because you've been busy.
So busy, but
Oh,
here I am. I'm good.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm absolutely stoked for the Women's College World Series, and I'm sure you are too.
I am. I'm a little disheartened that my Lady Vols won't be there, but I am excited. It's always a fun time, a fun 2 weeks to watch college softball, the biggest stage. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll actually break down the super regionals a little bit before we get into the final eight here. And we'll talk about the Bama Tennessee series, the Georgia, UCLA, and all the other ones. So let's start first and give a little bit of a background as to who is here before we go back and look at the super regionals. I mean, it's time to book some plane tickets. 8 teams have punched their ticket. You've got the field is led by the two top teams in the nation. Number one, Texas, and number two, Oklahoma. The Longhorns have turned the tide in the softball rankings by winning a series against the Sooners this year. So that's a little bit of a difference from last year. I think 6 losses as compared to 1 loss last year for the Sooners. So that's one thing we'll talk about in more detail. There's also all-time powerhouse UCLA making their record 36th appearance in OKC, and other prominent teams like Stanford, Oklahoma State, and Alabama are back, repeating as teams from the 2023 bracket. But there's also Florida looking to win a title since them claiming back-to-back titles in 2014 and 15, and 6-year-old program now, Duke, for the first time since they've existed in 2018, they've made it to the Women's College World Series. That's one that took me by surprise. I was thinking more along the lines of if an ACC team was going to get in, I was leaning more towards a Clemson than a Duke, but we'll go into that more. So first, let's go ahead and reference an old ESPN article while we have it here about how teams had keys that they had to check boxes off to really make it to OKC. And I know we'll look at Oklahoma and Florida State first, being we talked about them being a little bit behind, only having the number 2 seed now this year because of Texas having their go ahead and say magical season, because not a lot was expected out of Texas this year because of it being such a young team. But Oklahoma had to make one big thing happen for them. They had to take advantage of Florida State's uh, pitching troubles, and that's one thing that they had going for them, that they were able to have a quick 2-game sweep. So, what did you think about that series?
I'm with you right there. Like I think they definitely they jumped on their Florida State's weaknesses. And they're the team that can do things like that. Like they go into it, they're a very smart team. They're led well, and so they kind of go in knowing the tactics they need to use to kind of take down their opponents.
Oh yeah, for sure. And being that we're talking about um, Oklahoma, I mean, Patty Gasso is one of those legendary coaches. I mean, she always seems to know what to do, what's going on, how to fix a problem when she's presented with one. And I know just those 6 losses, I mean, you would say a 6-loss season so far going into the World Series. Yeah, for them, that is a down year, but, from any other run-of-the-mill team, like, 6 losses through over 50 games, almost 60 games now, that's a great year for them. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta think, but it's from the previous years, all the success that they've had, they've put themselves on such a pedestal, and they're held to such a high standard that 6 losses is nationwide news.
Yeah.
I know, Oklahoma, they had to take advantage of, especially Florida State's biggest pitcher was McKenna Reed, and she was actually out, and then I don't think we saw her much for the
Yeah.
last month of the season. They had an inexperienced staff facing a Sooners offense that ended up ranking third in scoring, kind of falling down from last year a little bit. And I mean, and they were second in batting average. Oklahoma knows FSU was looking for revenge. Sadly, they didn't get it. But I'll say that going back to the point I was saying about Patty Gasso making adjustments. I mean, she's got such a disciplined team, and of course, she lost some people due to graduation. Now playing professionally, she had some transfers come in, but she also made a big splash in the transfer portal herself by picking up Kelly Maxwell from Oklahoma State, just an in-state rival.
Mhm.
And I would probably say that that was probably the biggest pickup she had during the offseason.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mhm. And I would have to say that making adjustments is Oklahoma's strong suit with it, because they haven't had to do it so much that they know what to do. So but they've never had to do it to really put that plan into action. It's been sitting on the bottom shelf there for if they ever need it. And I know a lot of softball analysts, especially at ESPN. I want to think it might have been Amanda Scarborough that said this. She mentioned that with Oklahoma falling off a little bit, getting between 5 and 6 losses this year. Now it's actually a good thing for college softball because you're starting to see it become more competitive.
Right.
Yeah. I know. Let's go and look at Tennessee and Alabama now, being it's the next one down on this list here. I mean,
Um,
going into this matchup, being you are the Tennessee fan in this episode here, I mean, so what were you what were your expectations of Tennessee uh, going into this super regional? I mean, because probably the team to beat, especially within the conference, possibly one of the better teams in the nation, really.
I knew going into it, like you said, they've had a great season. Our pitching staff was well stocked. Like I was really excited about this team from the get-go, but I knew going into it playing Alabama, they're one of those teams that they always find a way to. I knew it was going to be tough. I didn't think it was going to be an easy series by no means, and it wasn't for either team. It was actually a great series. I had several friends texted me that I didn't even know they watched college softball, and they're like, "I'm watching the Tennessee Alabama game," and that 14 inning game, it was, that's what softball is all about. So while it's disappointing, it was a great series to watch. Alabama's a great team. Have a lot of respect for Patrick Murphy. He leads a great program, always has. So it was tough, but, it was kinda what I was expecting. I expected to be neck and neck. Me and my dad talked a lot about, though, a lot of games that Tennessee lost, they lost by 1 run this year. Even when they played Alabama earlier in the season, they won the series, but the game they lost against them was 1 run. We just, on the offensive side of it, they were either on or they were off, like, there was no in between. They had trouble stringing hits together some games, and, a lot of times, like that 3rd game in the series, they would rally late, and, I mean,
Mhm.
while that's great to see, sometimes it's just too late, so, that was tough, but like I said, it was a fun series. It was disappointing, but we have next year to look forward to. I'm excited to see what Carlin Pickens does next year. From her freshman to sophomore year, she grew so much as a player. She was so much fun to watch. We're gonna miss, all the ones we're losing because we're losing some great athletes and just great people in general. So it was tough, but it was kind of what I was expecting.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know probably the most impressed that I was with Tennessee on the pitching staff, why I would say is that Carla Pickens, she was probably the one that really caught my eye the most, as opposed to Peyton Gottschall coming back from last year. But I would say coming into the year, whenever I did a preview show with Logan Blizzard up at Middle Georgia, we were mainly looking at Kiki Malloy and Peyton Gottschall as like an offensive and defensive player
Right.
to really watch out for. But I mean, Gottschall coming in just a slightly higher ERA, a 1.21, which is still very impressive,
Yeah.
especially at the premier college level. But Carla Pickens coming in, just absolute velocity behind her pitches. I mean, it almost looked impossible to catch up to. I mean,
Right, I know. I mean,
yeah.
even watching on TV, like, some of the girls that I do pitching lessons with, I'd be like, "Girls, y'all go home and watch." I said, "I know I'm a Tennessee fan, but y'all go home and watch this pitcher," and we come back the next lesson and we talk about it, and they're like, "Miss Makayla, how do you throw that hard?" I'm like, "I don't know." I said, "She that those legs and, she's just, she uses her body to her advantage," and, just from her freshman to sophomore year, I'm kinda like you, I thought Gotcha was gonna kinda carry the team, and Pickens would come in, to like close things out or whatnot, but they just complemented each other so well. And Pickens just grew so much as a player. She learned to kind of be in control, which of course comes with, maturity and with experience, but, she was so much fun to watch, and I'm like you, like, the velocity and the consistency of the velocity. I mean, she didn't lose it throughout the game even after she threw 130 pitches a game or
Hmm.
whatever, like, the 7th inning, she's throwing, 72, 73 consistently and hitting 74, 75. So she's amazing to watch. I'm excited to see what her next 2 years look like.
Oh yeah, for sure. And of course, Mike Spires and I have made like different sports comparisons, comparing one athlete to another. If I had to make a baseball comparison to Carla Pickens, is that if you think about Justin Verlander,
Mhm.
pitcher with the Astros, he's probably the best guy in baseball that I have seen to consistently keep his velocity throughout the game, and even in later innings, possibly amp it up a little bit.
Right,
It's almost like a pacing strategy, I guess you could say, to where she's not going 100% right out of the gate, but I mean, that's if that's what she's doing. But
right.
coming out 72, 73, and then amp it up to 76, fifth, sixth inning, but then and you've got mid 60s, high 60s for a changeup or whatever type of pitch she has in her arsenal. uh, That honestly just made her just a more nasty of a pitcher. And of course, those that don't follow the lingo or follow the sports and all, like, if we're calling somebody nasty, I mean, that's not an insult at all, I mean.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny when a pitcher's changeup is 60 plus miles an hour, but when it's
Mhm.
coming in there 72, 73, and then she throws it in there 60, and that's something that, Karen Weekly had talked about in the preseason that she had really worked on was trying to develop an off speed because eventually, good hitters are going to catch up to the speed. But if you can mix in a off speed pitch and then moving around, up and down, in and out, and all that, then, I mean, you just like you said, you just become a nasty pitcher, you become, lethal for your team, so that she was fun to watch. I'm glad she's
Oh,
on our team.
oh, yeah, for sure, I mean, honestly, if I, uh this is a Georgia fan joking to a Tennessee fan, I would say if there's anything up in Tennessee that I actually will find myself pulling for on a regular basis, it's the softball team.
I know, they're
Yeah.
fun, they're
Oh, yeah.
fun.
And, just a handful of seasons ago, I mean, it actually kinda took me by surprise. We'll kind of flashback to, you had the husband-wife duo, and then when the husband stepped away, I was like, "Wow." I mean, usually when one steps away, the other one steps away, and you gotta go through a whole 'nother you gotta go through a whole 'nother regime change, and whenever Karen Weekly stayed on, I was like, "That's a big retention for them," and I
Right,
think that that's gonna work out in their favor, and you can tell season by season, I mean, they've kept themselves within the race.
and Ralph, he's not on the field as much, but he's still there. Me
Oh,
and,
he's still there, I mean, th
yeah.
they've put the camera on him a few times before,
Oh,
and
yeah. We
I
went
can
up
honestly
to
bet you there's some strategy talks at home.
Oh, for sure. We
Yeah.
me and Gavin went up to a series, last spring break, and he was right there, in the middle of it, so that was fun to see and, fun to watch, and I've really enjoyed Tennessee's, hitting coach, the one that they brought on. I think he's done a lot for the program too, so I don't know, we got some work to do in the off season, but, I'm excited to see next season already.
Oh, for sure, and then, before we move on to Alabama, I do wanna make the one point about too where we started focusing on the pitchers, but I know hot shot player or really superstar, I think she'll go on to play professionally somewhere, Kiki Malloy. She'll be very missed, among just college softball fans in general, not really just the volunteer fans, I mean, because
Sure.
she was a player, the, USA Player of the Year finalist last year with Valerie Cagle, and think Maya Brady was up at the top of those rankings as well. But I mean, honestly, I was hoping to see her uh, make it to OKC and try to pad her stats a little bit more to possibly make a case for our Player of the Year again.
I know. I don't know if you watched that final game in the series, but she was the last out of the
Yeah.
3rd game, and,
Hmm.
that's emotional, like, just thinking about all that. Even Gavin, who's not, an avid softball fan like I am, he was like, "That's a lot of pressure," and I'm like, "I know," I said, and I hate it for her, but honestly, she probably wouldn't have wanted it any other way. That was a way to go out, so we are gonna miss her, just her leadership and her ability to be an example on and off the field, her and Riley West. Riley West really stepped up this year too. So, we're gonna miss that group, but I wish them the best. I'm excited to see what they do. I don't think, like you said, I don't think we've seen the last of Kiki. I think we'll get to see her play a little bit more.
Yeah, she'll be somewhere. She'll have signed on somewhere to play professionally, whether it's with the Athletes Unlimited or another team somewhere.
For
I know
sure.
you got, of course, you've got the ever so classic USSSA Pride. You've got the Texas Smoke,
Yeah.
the OKC Sparks. And then we'll move on and we'll break down how Alabama won this super regional, and then we'll move on to Georgia and LSU. Uh, Basically, the keys that were in this article that I sent you to read over, it does say that Alabama will win this super regional if they forget the regular season and replicate their regional success, because Alabama, like all others, did lose some people. They lost pitching wise. They lost the ever so talented Montana Fouts. I think you've got, what's her name? Bailey Hemphill, I think.
Mhm.
Was she catching there last year as well? And you've got a couple of others that graduated. You've got some like everybody, transfers and graduations. But they all Alabama basically had to resort to small ball this season because of the young roster and who all they just didn't retain.
For sure.
Mhm. And the final point in this article that it makes, it says that, and I think this is where Alabama really turned the tide in their favor. It says Tennessee boasts one of the fiercest pitching staffs led by Pickens and Gottschall, but it'll be hard to hit against. But if the Tide can rally their bats and stifle the outfield, they can be dangerous. And I think to me, where the momentum shifted in their favor was that walk-off hit in that 14-inning game with basically that little slap in the infield. I mean, once that happened, I think everything went towards Alabama's side.
For sure. Well, they started game 3. I hadn't even turned the game on, and when I finally turned it on, it was 4 to
It was
nothing in a
4 nothing.
breakaway. I was
You
like,
had that early grand slam, and that's the reason I said that. I mean, that walk-off hit, and then roughly 24 to 36 hours later, maybe you've got an early grand slam. I was like, well,
right.
they might have it.
Well, they got the hits when they needed them, and Tennessee didn't, and, that's what determines a winner when 2 teams that are so evenly matched and just, have a lot of heart and a lot of, want to, and that's what both of those teams had, so, like, whoever can deliver in those big situations, that's who's gonna walk away with, the ticket to OKC, and they were the team that could get it done this time, so
For sure, for sure. We'll move out to Los Angeles now. We'll talk about Georgia's disappointing super regional. I mean, you and I both are going into OKC with a tad bit of disappointment, but some excitement
sure.
overall. Uh, Keys on UCLA to possibly have won that super regional. They were told to forget their early struggle in the season, starting out at 2-3. I mean, 5 games into the season, that's not terrible, but, I mean, by UCLA standards, I guess you could say it was. I mean, they also, kind of a younger team, coaching staff shakeups as well. I think, Coach Lisa Fernandez stepped into a different role. Basically, her and Kelly Perez swapped roles. You had Kelly Perez working with the pitchers, uh, this season. Lisa Fernandez, the pitcher, basically going on and facing more of an offensive role, bringing in a new pitching coach as well, who I think really did them some favors too, especially with the younger pitchers they had coming in. I know you've got Caitlin Terry and the other girl, last name of Tinsley, I believe, is her
Yeah,
name.
I think so.
And I think him coming in with being a professional fast pitch player himself in a men's division, I think he really helped out there as well. But I think one point I made in the preview show that I did is that Maya Brady was basically going to carry that UCLA lineup, and it was mainly told the top bullet point in that article was UCLA will be as good as Maya Brady is. So
Yeah.
going into this whole season and transferring into the super regional, what was your impression of UCLA?
Um, Honestly, during the season, I hadn't watched them too much. I did watch that early. I always like to watch that early Clearwater
Oh yeah,
invitational tournament, and they played Georgia, right? In
yeah, they
that,
did.
yeah,
Mhm,
and Georgia beat them that game,
mhm.
right? Honestly though, I was impressed with Georgia's regular season. They were swinging the bats, man, like going into it. I really thought that they had a chance there, and, I mean, in that situation, I'm always gonna pull for the SEC team,
Mhm.
and so I was kinda hoping to see, more SEC representation in OKC, which meant, hoping for Georgia to punch their ticket too. I really thought that they had a good team. They had some big seniors on their team, so, just wanting that for those girls too, so I don't know. UCLA is another team though that I feel like they always just find a way. They kinda rally. Then they fight. They don't lay down, so I was expecting it to be a pretty close series.
Honestly, I was expecting it too to be a whole lot closer than it was. I mean, Georgia's keys were from this author's article. It says Georgia wins if it keeps blasting homers. So,
Yeah.
I've told people this before. I mean, some teams. I mean, yeah, they were leading at one time. Let's see, coming out of the regionals when they had to beat Liberty twice. So that
Mhm.
brought their season total of home runs up to 92. And I know at one time I know last season, I think they did lead college softball with home runs. I don't know where they stood this year, but 92 home runs going into the super regionals. I don't believe anybody else blasted a home run during those super regionals on the Georgia roster. But coming in, I had nothing but high hopes for Georgia, especially coming into the whole season because of this is a little bit of a change from what I've said so far in this episode because of so much retention they had, bringing so many people back, and Tony Baldwin doing an incredible job in the transfer portal, bringing in Sarah Gordon as a second catcher because they did lose a catcher. Her name slips my mind right at the moment, but they did have Lindy Ray Davis as that second catcher as well. But she would also play in the DP position as well. But Georgia just didn't hit. That's simply the you could really wrap up Georgia's keys in that super region or their miscues in one sentence. They just didn't hit. They was barely in the offense. And then you think about Sarah Mosley, Sydney Chamblee, Dallas Goodnight, Jayla Kearney, and Emily Digby. Well, especially you think about Mosley and Kearney. I mean, those are probably the power hitters in that lineup, and they honestly didn't do much at all.
No, I agree. I didn't watch a ton of their series, but the little bit I did watch, I'm like you. I kind of expected more out of those big hitters, and I had some high hopes going into it, especially with like UCLA's pitching staff. But they, it didn't happen. It was an off
Right.
weekend for them, and
It
I
was.
kind of the same way that I think about Tennessee, like even as much as, she did during the regular season, Kiki didn't have a great series. Like I don't even think she had any home runs either and not many hits. So
Mhm.
it was just kind of one of those weekends, like it just nothing went in your favor. And those are frustrating when you've had, such a good season and you've put up the numbers and whatnot, and then it just doesn't happen when you need it to.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I know next season for them will be an interesting thing to watch out for because of who all they have leaving the program now, either graduating or going to play
Mhm.
professional. Some, of course, you're going to have some transfers going in and out because of the evolution of this transfer portal. Think about people leaving like Sarah Mosley, Sydney Chamblee, Ellie Armistead, Jada Kearney, I believe. Dallas, I don't recall if Dallas Good no, Dallas Goodnight will be back. Uh she's not graduated yet. Sydney Kuma, yeah, I forgot. That's one I was thinking about too. Second baseman. Those are some big names that they're losing. So I think going
Yeah.
into next year, Tony Baldwin has some adjustments to make, and I'm very eager to see what 2025 Georgia softball looks like.
Mhm.
One super region I do want to look at very quickly. Won't have much to say on it, but the Florida Baylor super regional. Not a lot of people thought that it would go 3 games.
Yeah.
Mhm. I know coming into it, I mean, early in the season, Baylor made a little bit of a splash in the Big 12, made a name for themselves, and then kind of fell off toward the end of the year. But coming back into this year, people were saying that Baylor's main key of having a successful season is just staying healthy because of because of how many people they had coming back, coming in
Mhm.
and taking a perennial good team like Florida to 3 games was really an accomplishment for a team like Baylor.
Yeah. And the game that they took from Florida, they controlled the whole game. I mean, it wasn't just
Mhm.
a rally at the end or whatnot. They controlled that game. It was fun to watch.
Oh yeah, for sure. And one thing I do want to get your opinion on with Florida is, well, I gotta get it on this phone here. Is because of how many people Florida didn't bring back. I know
They
you
didn't
had
bring
the
that many, did they?
no,
Like they thought, yeah.
Let me scroll down here to Florida real quick.
And
While we're at it, we'll take a
sometimes
quick break and take a
okay.
quick break and thank the sponsors. Let's thank Security State Bank, Jason's Fast Lube, Turkey Creek Outfitters, Vineyard Doodles, Milton CPA Services, and Merchants and Citizens Bank, Riles Drugstore, jointly with Riles Outfitters and the Law Office of Joseph I. Marchant. Did I lose you on the camera there, Mac? Oh, there you are.
Had to get onto my dogs.
Ah, I got you. I got it here. Oh, here it is. They brought in 11 new players this year.
Wow.
So you've got 7 of those for freshmen and 4 transfers coming in. But I would say 2 new names or 3. I'll bring those up and get your opinion on them that really shined for them outside of the expected Skylar Wallace at shortstop that she was just expected to pick up where she left off last year. You had Keegan Rothrock, a great
Mhm.
freshman pitcher that really got them through the supers.
Yeah.
And you had Corby Otis from Louisville and Jocelyn Erickson coming in from Oklahoma to play in the catcher spot. I mean, those 3 names there, those are what really, and Skylar Wallace, she did her part as expected, but going in through here. But I think throughout the whole season, that's what made Florida do better than some people were thinking they might do with so many new faces.
Yeah. And sometimes new faces aren't a bad thing.
Right. Yeah.
It just kind of depends on the team culture and what's going on in the program and whatnot. So sometimes a complete flip or almost complete flip is a good thing for a program. So Tim Walton obviously took it and ran with it and produced. Bringing in the transfers with the experience with the championship experience and whatnot. That's big. And of course, like you said, Skylar Wallace coming back, and she picked right back up where she left off. She's a good player. And so, and then like you said, the freshman pitcher, she's just kind of dealt for him all year long, and that's helped out a lot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I want to look at one last super regional before we break down the 8 in the final bracket here. We'll say the Missouri and Duke Super Regional. We'll go through that real quick. Missouri always been kind of that sneaky good softball team in the
Yeah.
SEC. That's sneaky good for lack of a better term, but Duke coming in as well. Like I said, young program. Them and Clemson around they got good around the same pace, I would say. But
Mhm.
Duke finally, in terms of representing the ACC, they were the one that lasted the longest.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's fun to see though. Um, like you said, because they haven't been a program for very long, and so that was a fun, regional to watch, and like you said, Missouri just always kinda puts up a fight, like, you don't hear much about them, but they always, perform, and so they're always kinda fun to watch too, so it was interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I would say Duke pretty much checked off all their boxes in terms of what they needed to do. Duke's offense and here said they needed to score early and often, and I do believe that that's what they did as well. And
Yep.
we'll break down some of the pitching that they did, or pitchers that they have to use in OKC when we get down to them on this list. And Missouri just it was basically I would have to say a lot of these regionals came down to who outpaced the other really because I mean I think 5 out of the 8 went to 3 games I believe so that's what made it so interesting to watch this year.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
And we'll jump on now and look at the numbers exclusively for what we got to look forward to in OKC. Looking at number 1 seed Texas, just some bullet points I'll read through here courtesy of the sportingnews.com website. We can reference Oh, I've already did this. All right, the Sooners have dominated college softball for the past several years, but when Texas won a regular season series against Oklahoma in early April, it represented a shifting of the powers. Since then, and after a scare in the Super Regionals against Texas A&M, the Longhorns are off to the World Series as your top seed. You've got powered by National Player of the Year finalist Reese Atwood. Well, we can go ahead and say that she's not a finalist anymore. Sadly, she didn't win that. I would say I was hoping Reese Atwood might have come away with that, but Nigel Kennedy from Stanford did end up winning that. So the
Yeah.
Longhorns have been among the top offenses in the country ranking second in Division One on base percentage, fourth in slugging, and ninth in home runs. Overall, they've outscored their opponents 485 to 137. So overall, like I said earlier, they were expected to be a young and learn on the fly type of team. That didn't happen.
Mm,
They're like one number one seed coming into the dance, as it's called.
right. And think about what they're gonna do going forward with this group.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's one thing that should make Texas fans very happy after seeing what so many people had their doubts, and coming in now that they've got the biggest chance of dethroning uh, Oklahoma and spoiling the four-peat chance. And I think if they've exceeded expectations this well, I think they've got a lot to look forward to throughout this tournament and going through however long they can keep the girls there.
Mhm.
We look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma has already won three straight national titles, as we've said, but the Sooners came into this year's tournament as a number two seed, putting them in an unusual position as a slight underdog in this field. Don't tell that to them. Yeah, let's just well, we mentioned that earlier. Don't say that don't say it to their face. But Oklahoma made quick work of a number 15 Florida State in two games to advance to the World Series for the eighth straight edition of the tournament. The Sooners are once again dominant nearly in all facets. They rank seventh in team ERA with a 1.85, first on on base percentage, second in slugging, and among all Division One teams, they have outscored opponents 483 to 107. I know we've already kind of went through what we think Oklahoma will do. It's just it. I think with Oklahoma, it's a matter of is you better strike first and you better do it often, and your pitcher better be on her P's and Q's. Basically, that's
Oh,
all
for
it is.
sure.
I
You come
mean,
out the gate,
mhm.
you gotta get that momentum and keep that momentum with them. That's just how it goes with that team.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, I mean, the keys that we're giving here they may sound stereotypical and kind of like a, oh no no duh uh type of keys, but that's really what it is because I mean, even though they're not as dominant as they were last year, only having lost once coming into the tournament, Patty's uh, Patty knows when they need to pick up some slack, and she knows how to do it quickly and not over a stretch. I mean, because it's almost like they've gotten it down to a science to where they can do it within a game or so, or mid game, and adjust on the fly.
For sure.
And that's the sign of a well rounded team.
Mhm.
If you look at the number four seed Florida, we'll look at these numbers. They faced a bit of a scare when Baylor took them down 5-2 in the second game of the Supers. They mounted a late comeback in the third game, but number four Florida was able to eliminate the Bears to reach the College World Series. Now they're looking to win a title for the first time since 2017 and claim the program's first title. Oh, excuse me. They're looking to reach the title game since the first time since 2017 and claim the first title since their back-to-back stretch in 2014 and 2015. Florida's all about the bats. They rank 52nd in team ERA, so that kind of goes to show you why offense has been their power. Pitching has been okay. We talk about how good Keegan Rothrock has been, but it almost seems like she's been the only one in the news in terms of Florida pitching.
Mhm.
You look at on base percentage, fourth with that, fifth in slugging percentage. They also are a dangerous team on the bases as they are tied for 10th with 107 stolen bases. We'll talk about what quick quick throwback to Corby Otis there. I know you may not know a lot about Corby Otis. I did a little bit of research before I did that preview with her. Is that when she was at Louisville, I think the 2020, I'm going to say 2023 season. Yeah, because I'm getting my dates mixed up. Throughout the whole entire season with Louisville, I don't know how far they made it, but she was only caught stealing once.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you can go through Division I softball like that, a Power Five school, I mean, of course, there's softball talent all over the nation. It's not just it's just not sequestered down here in the South where we are, of course.
Mhm.
I mean, if you can go through and you can be that smart on the bases and only getting caught once, I mean that's actually impressive. I think she alone bolstered the stolen base game, but there were also other ones on that returned up from last year's roster that really helped out. In terms of stolen bases in softball, this is just a pure opinion question. I'll ask a softball player, a former softball player. Would you say stealing bases is a little bit harder for a softball player?
For me, yeah, because 'cause I'm not fast.
No, I mean, what I'm referring to is basically, I guess you say the way in which they have to steal. I guess baseball players take a lead. They're
Mm,
already a quarter of the way there. Basically, if they get a good enough lead.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, now you just have to be careful. I would say the more tricky thing in softball, I would say, is just be careful not leaving early because that's
Yeah.
something that can go to review.
Mhm.
And so it used to be, you relied on the umpire to see it in action, but now it seems almost every time somebody steals a bag, they want a review to see if they left early. So
Mhm.
I don't have much experience with stealing bases. If I was stealing, there was
Mhm.
probably somebody on third, and I was being very careful. But no, I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's a little
Mhm.
bit different, but just trying to time it up, I would think, especially now, with the video reviews, it would be the main thing.
Yeah, and that's what's I honestly agree with you there. That's what's made it so hard is that you've got 17 cameras pointed at you, and it's like you better be sure when you go and you better take your foot off right when they let go.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It's, and also another thing is, like, the art of sliding. I think a lot of times, how someone goes into second base with their slide, it, makes or breaks it. So it's impressive, like, how some of these girls can, like, slide around. Of course, they got all the gear on now, the
Mhm.
hand protectors and things like that. So, that's another part of, stealing that goes into it, but like I said, I didn't have much experience with that.
Oh well, of course I know you've had to give it a couple of tries, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
only in certain situations.
Only in certain situations. I was gonna say, what was your success percentage of stealing bases?
Only, my coaches knew when to send me and when not to.
Yeah, we're looking at the Oklahoma State Cowgirls. I know they were eliminated out of the tournament last year by Tennessee. And going into this year, there wasn't a whole lot of information I could find to really reference how they were going to do this year. But from what I did find, I mean, looks like another one of those teams that were in going by what the scout that I read behind was that they might be playing from behind. That was his quote. But nonetheless, they've made it back to the World Series. I mean, just Oklahoma State is just a team, and when it comes to a softball program, you really can't ever count them out. The loss of Lexi Kilfoyle, though, going yeah, the loss of Lexi Kilfoyle was probably one big blow to them in
Mhm.
terms of having good pitching. Uh, Offensive wise, they didn't really seem to have too much of a problem. They made it by Arizona okay. I do believe that was one of the ones that had to go 3 games, right? I
Yeah,
believe
I
so.
think so.
Believe so. They made it by Arizona. Okay, Arizona also, if you look at them too, I mean that they are no pushover with softball because you think about when you think far enough about it, you got Mike Candrea who has the wins record. I mean that whole entire program was set in their success was pretty much set in stone while he was there, and just the name gets people to come there.
Yeah.
You know, if they ended up pulling off an upset in the Fayetteville regional, but its run ended swiftly in a sweep against. Oh, excuse me. Arizona pulled off an upset. If I read the whole
Mhm.
thing, I'll get it right. Arizona pulled off an upset in the Fayetteville regional, eliminating Arkansas, which goes back to what we were saying. We were hoping to see some more SEC representation there, but its run ended swiftly against Oklahoma State. The Cowgirls punched their fifth straight trip to the series, and they're hoping this year will wind up being the time they win their first national championship. National Player of the Year finalist Lacey Kilfoyle, who has a 1.05 ERA and 167 innings this season, is star of Oklahoma State. But this is a well-rounded starter, and thanks to the 10th in team ERA, excuse me, that ranks in 10th in team ERA at 195, 31st in on base percentage, and 8th in slugging percentage. So I mean, overall, let me retract that. I make a correction. It's Kelly Maxwell, not Lexi Kilfoyle. Lexi Kilfoyle is a transfer from
Mm.
Alabama. I got the
Yeah.
Oklahoma transfer thing wrong. It was Maxwell, not Kilfoyle. I think overall, I think Oklahoma State may be the sleeper team. I would say in terms of the ones that have been there, done that type of thing. Going by that standard, if you want to pick from that lot, that they may be the sleeper team because I mean, not like I said, not a lot of information.
Mhm.
Nobody's really jumped on the cowgirl hype train so far.
Yeah.
So I mean, the cowgirls may be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah. I feel like they're kinda like we were talking about Missouri, they're just they kinda sneak up on you, like,
Yeah. Mhm.
they just always show up in postseason
Mhm.
and, find ways to win, so,
Mhm.
I do think that there's someone to keep an eye on, I don't know, I don't it'll be interesting.
Oh
Anything
yeah.
can happen when you get out there, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we always make the we always talk about March Madness basketball. I mean, I was gonna say, why don't you call this Spring Madness with softball? I mean, so the entertainment value is so much more. It's really so much more fun.
And I just feel like anything you've done up until this point, while it does your preparation matters, like anything that's happened up until this as far as like wins and losses, it doesn't mean anything.
Throw it out the window.
Yep, it's kind of like you're all starting with a clean slate, going out there. So
It's just simply numbers now.
it
Uh,
is, it
yeah.
is.
6th seed UCLA. You got the Bruins ended up sweeping number 11 Georgia to cap off what has been a dominant run to the College World Series after a slow start. UCLA has not lost a tournament game and has now reached the College World Series for the record 36th time. The Bruins have the most national championships of the lot with 13, and they're looking to keep adding to that record and claim their first title since 2019. Led by star Maya Brady, the Bruins rank 17th in slugging percentage, 10th in on base percentage, and Brady has a 431 average with 17 home runs this season. She was named Pac-12 Player of the Year for the second straight year. Goes back to the point I said before the preseason. People were saying that your overall leader of the squad was going to be Maya Brady. That team
Yeah.
will be as good as Maya Brady is, and I think she picked up where she left off. I mean, she's lived up to expectations, and I think go after this. I think she has already signed on to play professionally in the Athletes Unlimited league, I believe. And so, aside from that, I mean, that has already happened. And I know she's good enough of an athlete to put that on the back burner and focus on winning a national title. I mean, so your overall opinion on how you think UCLA is going to make it through this bracket? How far do you think they get?
Well, they come on in not too long, don't they?
Hmm.
What at noon? They have the noon game today.
Oh, is it today? I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was tomorrow. Is it
Oh, it might
today?
start tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I get my days are all mixed up. But yeah, they have the
same here.
noon game
Hmm.
tomorrow.
Hmm.
I'm on summer break, so I don't keep up with the days.
It's hard.
But so they'll have Alabama. Again, I just always feel like, UCLA is always a dominant team, especially on the big stage. So they've been there before, and I don't know. I feel like they're a well coached team. And like you say, I feel like with Brady kind of leading the way, she can leave all the accolades and all the success behind and, focus on what's right there in front of them. That's winning, of course, a national title. So I look for them to do big things out there. Um, but again, it's anyone's game.
Oh yeah, especially when you look through this entire bracket. I mean, everybody that made it has had success in the past.
Mhm.
Plus or minus Duke because their sample size is still very small compared to the others. We'll look at Stanford. Simply put, um, this is their words, not mine. Nigel Kennedy is a cheat code. I say she has an absurd 0.67 ERA in 198 and two-thirds innings of work this season. She has 307 strikeouts and only 37 walks for an 8.35 strikeout to walk ratio for those that are big into analytics. And in an elimination game against number 9 LSU, she held the Tigers to just 3 hits and a walk over 6 innings. The National Player of the Year now that she's officially secured it has been the anchor of number 8 Stanford and is the prime reason the Cardinals rank ninth in ERA overall. The question for Stanford will be how will the bats keep up with with some of the best offenses in the among some of the best offenses in the country. The Cardinals they rank 77th in on base percentage and 75th in slugging percentage. So going by purely the numbers, softball's not played on paper, but if you go by the numbers beforehand, they look to be behind offensively.
Yeah, I agree, and, pitching seems to have carried them. I haven't watched them a ton this season, but, I see the highlights, and of course,
Mhm.
their pitching stand down at .67 ERA is just amazing, and her, strikeout to walk ratio, like, that's impressive when you can hold a team like LSU and their, bats to just 3 hits in a tough game like that, that's impressive, so hopefully they've, hit the cages these past few days, in preparation for
Mhm.
OKC and, I don't know, yeah, a lot of times it is a pitcher's duel though, and then it turns out to be who can get the big hit in the moment, so
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And honestly, I hope they don't end up having to rely on Kennedy so much to where she gets close to being worn out. Because
yeah.
uh, I know one thing to say in favor of Kennedy. I know in last year's tournament, Patty Gasso even said in a post game presser, she said, "I don't want to have to face her again."
Yeah,
Just basically saying somebody eliminate Stanford before we had to
yeah,
get back around to him.
I
But,
agree, so
you
and
know
that's a compliment coming from
oh,
her
yeah.
getting
Oh, no
it.
doubt. I mean, that no, and to some ears, that may sound kinda bad, but no, like, if Patty Gasso is saying that, "I don't wanna have to see you again," that means you kinda made Oklahoma a little bit nervous.
For sure,
And,
for
yeah,
sure.
you basically had to make them work for a win.
Oh, yeah.
And I know coming into this, I know Stanford like you said, if they get into the cages and if they can strike early and give her some cushion, which that's also a big thing for a pitcher too, being you've pitched for most of your softball career, having a run cushion makes
Mhm.
your job a whole lot
Oh,
easier.
yeah. And just that confidence, of knowing that if you do give up, a run or a home run or whatever,
Mhm.
knowing that your team can get in there and bounce back and, do the exact same thing, that changes, your whole mindset. So I'm hoping that the offense can maybe they've been saving it for OKC.
Yeah, we'll end up finding out tomorrow. And,
Mhm.
to kind of piggyback on a comment you made earlier about UCLA, and I can understand, not being able to follow a bunch of West Coast teams, because they play later, and like
Yeah,
you and they don't really play as often as compared to what you would see East Coast teams. East Coast games are kind of piled together. You go over to the West Coast, you've got like 6:30, 9:30, 10:30. Yeah, we're in bed, man. Come on.
I was gonna say, I go to bed pretty
Yeah.
early.
I was like, look, if for anybody who's a Stanford or UCLA fan over here, uh, I wish you nothing but the best, but I'm going to bed.
I'd have to catch the highlights the next
Oh,
morning.
absolutely, for sure. I want to hit Duke and Alabama, and that'll be it after that. Uh, look at the Blue Devils have come a long way in a short time. That could really sum up that can really sum them up right there. But the
Mm.
program started in 2018 and made its first regional appearance in 2021, but then it went to back super regionals in 2022 and 2023. And now it has advanced to the College World Series for the first time in team history by stunning number 7 Missouri 4-3 in the Columbia Regional. So excuse me, Super Regional now. Um, Duke can do a little bit of everything, but the Blue Devils ranked 12th in on base percentage and 20th in slugging percentage, but the pitching is where they're the best, sitting at third with a 1.53 ERA. You've got Claire Davidson she made a case for Player of the Year with 18 home runs, while you've got Jayla Wright shined on the mound with a 1.28 ERA in 153 and one third innings, while forming a dynamic pairing with Cassidy Curd, who had a 1.29 ERA in 119 and one third innings. And I would
Mhm.
have to say, before I get your opinion on this, one thing that the one reason I was kind of iffy on Duke about possibly making it to the World Series this year is because of the big loss of Peyton St. George last year, because she was probably the pitcher at Duke last year.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have honestly,
Mhm,
Duke's a team that I just don't really follow much in softball.
mhm,
So to see them in the postseason, you start paying attention to everyone when it
mhm.
comes to postseason, and to see them in the postseason and see what they've been able to do, it's been cool. So I'm excited to see what they do and
Oh yeah, me too.
able to deliver.
Oh, I'm honestly excited too. But if you go back over and you look at the bracket, you look at opening round games, they
They got
drew
the toughest one.
they drew the short straw.
They
Yeah.
did. They
Yeah, I was
did.
gonna say there's the Columbia Super Regional got paired up with the Norman Super Regional. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think what isn't that the is that the first game?
It's the second one.
The
So
second game. Okay, it's Alabama and
Bama
UCLA
and
first.
UCLA, they're first, yeah.
Okay, so they got the 2:30 slot.
Yeah.
But man, and I know this will be the last point I make about Duke, and I'll get your opinion on it. Looking at the numbers, I mean, they have done incredible this year. I know I've seen more of Jayla Wright than I have Cassidy Curd pitching by what little bit of following I've given them. But with the numbers that they've showed, just 12th in the nation in on base percentage, 20th in slugging, and you've got a team ERA of 1.53. It almost seems unfair to give them the title of the Cinderella team in this bracket of 8, because I mean, usually the Cinderella team is the team that fought their way there, that they've got middle of the pack numbers, but
Mhm.
these are actually this their top 15, top 20 numbers in the nation. That's
Yeah,
it's over hundreds of schools, and
I
now
agree.
it almost seems kind of unfair to give them the Cinderella team label, you know?
I agree, but definitely out of the 8 teams there, I do think that they are gonna be the one that has to fight their way through the
Yeah.
bracket going
Mhm.
forward, but I agree with you,
Mhm.
you know, that they've put up the numbers, they've, held their own this year, so, I get what you're saying, and, I definitely agree, but I think going forward, they're definitely gonna be the ones that have to, find the ways, play the small ball, just kind of fight their way through.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know in the first game that they've got with Oklahoma, which of course, I mean, all odds do seem to show that they very well may lose. It'd be kind of foolish to say that they would upset Oklahoma, but if or when, whichever one it comes out to, but if they were to fall down into the losers bracket, then that's when the actual fight starts with Duke, and they're having to work their way through with all these other teams, whoever ends up falling. So if they can work their way back around, if it happens, if it may honestly be a good thing
Mhm.
to draw Oklahoma first, so you can see, all right, this is what we had to deal with. You haven't seen Oklahoma, you hadn't personally played them, and
Yeah.
and if Oklahoma stays in it, you're going to end up working your way back around to Oklahoma. It's like, okay, we were the first ones to see it. We know what we got to adjust to.
What to expect, yeah. I agree. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And now, last but not least, the 14 seed Alabama Crimson Tide. The Crimson Tide, they were the number 5 team in the nation in 2023, and they advanced to the College World Series for the 14th time in program history, coming into the 2024 Postseason, they were a bit below a few others, ranking as the 14th team in the country and facing a talented Tennessee squad that ranked third all time. All the Crimson Tide did was get off to a 4-0 start in the first inning with a grand slam from Riley Valentine in the first inning, and top the third ranked Volunteers to head back to Oklahoma City. Unlike some of the others in this year's field, the Crimson Tide are not a star-studded lineup. They have a 352 on base percentage, a 386 slugging, which ranks 146th and 161st, respectfully. But they are also among one of the best at keeping runs off the board, ranking them seventh in ERA at a 191 ERA. But in other words, we should give a lot of credit to Coach Pat Murphy and the Crimson Tide for adjusting the playing style and making the impact that they've made by playing some small ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That leadoff batter, man, she gets on base and I mean just in the supers, like watching her, she gets on base, she's gonna score. Like she and a lot of times she's, she either draws the walk or just slaps the ball and she's got that speed, she uses it. And I agree, he used a lot of small ball and I mean he knew his girls weren't putting up the run, so he knew that's what he had to do. And you give credit where credit's due,
Oh
and,
yeah, for sure, for sure.
he's a
And I
great
know.
coach. She's a great coach.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about Patty Gasso too. I mean, we the it's almost like in college football, like the standard of a great coach is comparing somebody to Nick Saban, which is kind of unfair, because there's been a couple of times in college football where people who have been fired by not having Alabama success, and
Mhm,
some coaches are kind of looked down as lesser than by not being as successful as Oklahoma and Patty Gasso. But
mhm,
Pat Murphy to me, and Karen Weekly also is one that I would put in that conversation too. I think eventually, however long he stays at Georgia, I think Tony Baldwin will eventually get to that level as
mhm,
well. But Pat Murphy, to me, is around deserves the same praise of being a great coach as Patty Gasso does because of the length of time he's been there, the success that he has on his resume with Alabama, and he's been able to show, especially this year, with a 146th ranking and 161st ranking with on base percentage and slugging percentage. He's to know that he has to adjust. He might not have wanted to adjust as okay for us to get somewhere. We've got to try something. So
right.
being able to accept the adjustment and put it in there and get it to work very quickly,
Mhm.
and I mean, all the more credit goes to coach there.
I agree, I agree. Even, me and my parents were talking, like, while watching the series, and he like you say, he just knows what to do and when to do it, and, he in the middle of a game, if he has to change up his game plan, he does it, and, the girls respect him. They, he's just built a culture, within that softball program, and they trust him, and, I mean, he's just a great coach and I think a great guy.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that this is a small point among bigger points, but you think about this as a women's sport, but also people would say that people like Tony Baldwin, Mike Candrea, Patrick Murphy, like the men may not get it as well as some of these
Mhm.
women inside this sport as well. But you got to think, I mean, with the success that he's had, I mean, the man seems to know, and like you said, he's garnered the respect of critics, analysts, and players alike. I mean, you got to say the man has shown that the man knows what he's doing.
Oh, for sure. I
Mhm.
agree. I agree.
So now to close this out, we'll get predictions. All right, I've got three things we'll predict: opening round winners, championship matchup, and how many games it'll take to win the title. Like if it goes an easy two, or go full three.
Okay.
And being you're the guest, we'll start with you.
Alright, we just are going in order of games tomorrow then?
Yeah, we can go in order.
Alright, so Alabama, UCLA, they got the noon game in tomorrow because tomorrow's Thursday. I'm probably gonna go with UCLA.
Mhm.
for that game. What about you?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards UCLA having won that one. I mean, I would say that I hope not, but let's just say that Alabama might have a little bit of some tiredness or jet lag from the Tennessee game because they played like 4 games worth against
In 3
Tennessee.
games, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
For game 2, I hate it. I'm gonna be pulling for Duke, but, yeah, the Sooners, they're good.
yeah.
Um, for game 3 between
Mhm.
Texas and Stanford, that's gonna be tough, but I think I'm gonna go with Texas. And, for game 4, that's another tough one. That I think it's gonna be a pretty good matchup, but, I don't know. I might not be pulling for them, but I think Florida might be able to take that one.
All right, all right. Like going through in order, I mean, I've already said I think UCLA would take that one. Duke and Oklahoma. I mean, yet again, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like I'm agreeing with you, but like you said, the head says Oklahoma, heart says Duke, you know?
I know.
Yeah, so I'll have to say Oklahoma, just for being a realist, Oklahoma will advance.
Yeah.
Going down to the bottom, I'd say uh, the offense, I mean, the offense of Texas versus the defense of Stanford. Uh, and I got to say that I'll go with I'm gonna go with Texas. I'll go with Texas. Yeah, because I think that I think that offense will be able to adjust to Nigeria pretty quickly. I think because
And
the
knowing that that's who they have, they of
Mhm,
course, all these scouting reports and all,
mhm,
they just I think that they're gonna I don't
mhm.
know. I think this is a good matchup. That is this bottom of the bracket.
Yeah,
It's
those bottom two. I was like, wow, okay,
Mhm.
those are really the hard ones.
Yeah.
And for the sake of mixing it up, I'll say that Oklahoma State will beat Florida in that game. I'll say to really give a little bit of a shock, we'll get a lower seed beating a higher seed there. I know it's 4 versus 5, so that wouldn't be that surprising, you know. So
Right.
I'll say Oklahoma State will pull through and be that spoiler team, as we call them, really sneak up and beat you when you don't think they'll beat you, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Now we'll go through and project the championship matchup.
Ugh. I don't know. I just have a feeling that the Sooners will make it back to the championship series and I guess I'm gonna go with Texas for the
Oh, a little Red River rivalry. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
that's a tough.
see.
God, that's
It's
a
just
tongue twister.
hard when, you
Yeah,
get out there and
yeah.
it's
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
anybody's game.
Right. It's basically a coin flip.
Mhm.
If you go ahead and call it, throw it up in the air and see how it lands, basically. Oh, okay. I'm going to say all logic points to Oklahoma. I
Mm.
I don't recall what me and your daddy projected last year. I want to think I want to think he may have predicted a Oklahoma Tennessee final.
I think you did.
Yeah, and he was actually pretty close. Yeah,
Mhm.
and so I'll have to say all logic points to Oklahoma. So I'll say Oklahoma will stay within that winners bracket and get there pretty easily. Um, and I gotta say, as much as I'll say this, Duke will end up falling early to Oklahoma. They will make Duke will make it to the semis, but they will lose out to UCLA. And I think that we will get an ever so classic. I believe it was the 2019 matchup, wasn't it? I
Mhm.
think with Oklahoma and UCLA, didn't we talk about UCLA winning for the first? They were looking to win for the first time since 2019.
Maybe so.
Yeah, they're looking to keep adding to the record as they look to claim their first title since 2019. And I believe that was Oklahoma that they played in that game. So if anybody ends up watching this, y'all correct me on social media, wherever. Well, I think that oh, well, I think that's what it was. But, going through and making these projections, like you said, it's hard.
Tough, it is.
Yeah. And so we got you projecting to go Oklahoma and Texas, and I'm going with Oklahoma and UCLA. And with I added a little bit of extra there. I said Duke would surprise everybody by making it to at least the semis.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the way I'm thinking about it, and hopefully I'm not too far off. Like I said, we've projected football scores before, and I have been close once out of hundreds of games, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like you said, toss a coin, and that's how it's going to be. So, with all that being said, let's thank the sponsor one more time. The law office of Joseph I. Marchant, the Riles Drugstore, the Merchants and Citizens Bank, Milton CPA Services, Vineyard Doodles, Turkey Creek Outfitters, Jason's Fast Lube, and Security State Bank. Once again, Mac, thanks so much for sitting down with me. I mean, I'm excited for tomorrow. The I know the first two games will be really interesting to watch
Yeah.
because of how big those matchups are. I think UCLA and Bama will be that's one heck of a way to kick off the tournament. I think because UCLA coming through with a little bit of dominance in their super regional, Alabama
Mhm.
had to really fight for it. I think we'll find out who's really trained the most on the way out there.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, I hope to sit down with you sometime in the future. Hopefully, we can do this in person sometimes.
Sounds good.
All right, and for those who tuned in, thank you so much for watching. Be on the lookout for it for the upload on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to like, share, follow. Look out for any new news updates on upcoming guests. And until then, y'all have a great day.